Hello and welcome to the sort of reboot of my YouTube channel. Since it's been so long since I made my last video, due to personal reasons like getting a new job and getting married and all that fun stuff. So I decided I want to make YouTube videos again when I had all my priorities straightened out, and I also want to do a small reboot of my channel to kind of change things up. Because I was happy with my older videos, but not as happy as I wanted to. So I'm officially doing a soft reboot of my channel. I'm still going to talk about Warhammer, obviously, but I might as well throw in a little extra. Today's episode of Whiskey and Warhammer, we're going to take the Unsc from the Halo franchise and put them up against the Imperium of Man from Warhammer 40k. Why did I choose this? Well, simply because as of time of recording this video, Halo Infinite will be dropping in a few weeks, and with that excitement, might as well hop on the bandwagon, right? Let's start with the Unsc from Halo, because that's going to be the easiest, because thankfully the people writing the Halo lore were nice enough to put numbers in actual measurements to shit, in their lore. Unlike a certain other franchise that I'm talking about, but due to Warhammer's kind of vagueness when it comes to its lore, let's do the easy one first. So, Unsc stretches across 800 planets in this universe. It is the main government of the human race in the Halo franchise. Now, in the Unsc, it has about 2.2 billion people in its military. I couldn't find enough information about what the whole human population is, simply because also there are human colonies outside the Unsc's jurisdiction. So to get exact number of the human population in Halo is a little more difficult than I thought it would be, but at least they tell us how many people are in the Unsc's military. So thank God for that. Of the 2.2 billion fighting forces in the Unsc, about 1,000 or so. It's hard to get an exact number, but from my handy dandy notes here, about 875-ish Spartans were made. But those are the numbers I got from two Spartan programs 2 through 4. I couldn't really find any numbers. Maybe if I dug a little bit more, I could find the Spartan 1's numbers, but safe to assume that the numbers consisting from Spartan projects 1 through 4, it probably would have been around 1,000 Spartans made. Now before we talk more about Spartans, let's talk about the Unsc soldiers themselves. The Unsc soldiers, their training is a little bit more advanced than our basic military training of today. That would be about the equivalent of Army Rangers, so not super specialized training, but still more advanced than the regular infantrymen. They also wear a little bit stronger armor than what our current soldiers wear today. While most modern soldiers are wearing Kevlar vests and all that, the Unsc soldiers have like armor plating, that kind of thing. A little bit stronger armor, but nothing crazy. It mostly covers the vital organs, and then with the weaponry, pretty simple, similar to what we actually have now. The standard assault rifle that you see in Halo, the MA5, basically the standard, the M4 to M16 of the Unsc. It has about, depending on which version, because there are several versions, but mostly all stay the same. You'll either have 35 to 60 rounds, with each round being full metal jacket 308. pretty standard. Nothing crazy when you compare it to modern weapons, because most of our modern weapons are basically the same thing. And with the other weapons like the battle rifle and the DMR, it is actually mostly similar, same size of bullets. Some are explosive, some aren't. But in all relativeness, the bullets are roughly the same size. So you're getting a nice consistency when it comes to different rounds and different weapons that the UNSC use. Now, some of you are going to make the argument, what about the Spartan Laser? The Spartan Laser was made for the Spartans and is a high-powered energy weapon that has a 3-second firing up sequence, which, when you think about it, isn't that good. Simply, yeah, it can blow up a warthog, but in battle, that's a lifetime. Now I'm going to talk about the Spartans. Now the Spartan program was a little iffy. See, they would, instead of just volunteering or having volunteers, the UNSC thought its best way to get Spartans was to kidnap children. Yeah, that's a big moral no. And all these kids were raised up through advanced training, and when they reached a certain age, if they survived the training, because the training was nothing to scoff at, they would eventually receive drug injections, mechanical parts to upgrade their bones, their instincts, and all that super soldier standard stuff. But at the time, all the injections, the hypnotherapy, the mechanical parts put into them, they would be about 7 to 8 feet tall, being able to lift thousands of pounds, run extremely fast, about 60-ish kilometers per second, which is nothing to scoff at. With the Master Chief, I believe, being able to run over 100 kilometers for a few seconds before tearing his, I believe, Achilles tendon. Should have looked that up before starting, but hey, it's mostly on the ballpark there. Now, while the Spartans are very impressive in their physical prowess, they still have limitations, unfortunately. So, extreme length combat scenarios, if the combat lasts long enough, there will be wear and tear on their body, as evidence of Master Chief when running a certain speed for a few seconds, tearing his tendon. So, while impressive, Spartans do have very clear limitations. What helps with their limitations is their Mjolnir Armor. There have been several varieties of Mjolnir Armor, but the make has always kind of stayed the most consistent. It's titanium plated with a crystallized gel that goes over the skin itself that help provide mobility, while the titanium plates go above that crystallized gel suit. This creates a nice impact resistant armor, and plus they each have personal shields. Now, is it perfect? No. There is a reason why for the longest time before the 343 retconned this for some reason, that Master Chief was the only Spartan left after the war on Reach. So now with the retcon, there are more surviving Spartan 2s, but in our reality, that's not really going to make much of a difference in this fight, and I'll tell you why in a sec. Now with that basic information about the UNSC, with 2.2 billion serving men and women, with about 1,000-ish Spartans, what will they go up against with the Imperium of Man from 40K? Well, now I had to do a little math, which is why I have this handy dandy notebook here. So when you look up the population of the Imperium of Man, you get a population of 8.354 quadrillion. That's a pretty big number. But unfortunately, I couldn't find, when I was doing research, I couldn't find the exact number for the service men and women of the Imperium of Man. So what I did was look up the percentage of military population in the US, which when I looked it up was about less than 10%. That's the answer Google gave me. So I decided it's Warhammer. I'm lowballing it because trust me, anyone who knows the Warhammer 40k universe, 9% is pretty low. But using that as a reference point to figure out what the total amount of servicemen and women in the Imperium of Man's military, we get, I believe, if I did this correctly, I even double checked on Google, so I'm pretty sure I did, 751.86 billion. That is way more than the UNSC, and that's just the beginning of their troubles. So not only is the Imperial Man's army bigger, they have a more variety of military units. While the UNSC has, their Navy men, their Marines, the Spartans, standard military that you see today, with the obviously exception of the Spartans. With the Imperial Man, you have a little bit more variety because you got the Imperial Guard, who honestly have the similar armor and training to the UNSC regular infantry. So both have about the same amount of training, the same kind of armor. But the big difference between the Imperial Guard and the UNSC is the weapons. While the MA5 in all of its varieties will fire a 308 full metal jacket, the Imperial Guard have something called the las gun. Now, in the Warhammer 40k universe, it's called a flashlight. But this flashlight is a hyper accurate laser gun with different forms of fire. So it can be, fully automatic, semi-burst, all that good stuff. Never jams. And the laser itself is so powerful, it can blow giant holes in concrete and blow off limbs. Compared to the MA5's 308 full metal jacket round. It's not looking good. But that's just the beginning of the UNSC's problems when going up against the Imperium of Man. As you may think, what about the vehicles? What about the Scorpion tank? What about the Warthog? The Imperium Man also has the same amount of vehicles, well, more obviously, bigger army, more vehicles. They also have Imperial Knights, which are the size of literal buildings. And as far as we know, the UNSC doesn't really have anything like that. They have Lemur Rest tanks, they have Bane Blades, versus Warthogs and Scorpions and whatever else the UNSC has, which has struggled against the Covenant weaponry, while Imperium has its own laser weapons, plasma weapons, and even a weapon that takes energy from 40k's version of Hell and shooting it. I'm sorry, UNSC, you're in trouble there. And then, of course, the big one, the one I can't ignore, the Astartes, or the Space Marines. Yes, the Imperial Man has his own version of Space Marines. Of course, 40k fans already know this. But with the Adeptus Astartes, or the Space Marines, how many of them are there? Well, having to do math, once again, yay, you have approximately 1,000 chapters within canon lore at the moment. Of course, that number might vary depending on what's going on. With the Codex Astartes, the rules that the Space Marines have to follow, saying that there can only be 1,000 Marines per chapter. Now, of course, Not every Space Marine chapter follows this rule, with Space Wolves not giving two shits about the Codex Astartes, and the Salamanders getting an exemption from that rule due to the events of the Horus Heresy. At minimum, you got about 1 million Space Marines versus the 1,000 Spartans. And you may think, well, the Spartans are pretty powerful, while so are the Space Marines. You see, the Astartes, while also recruiting children, they are, one, a little less shady about it. Is it morally wrong still? Yes, but they're not just going to be like kidnapping children and replacing them with clones. No. So, in that kind of front, is slightly better. Not by much, but slightly better. And then with their upgrades, instead of having cybernetics, well, unless you're Iron Hands, but that's a different thing altogether. With Space Marines, the Astartes, their upgrades are actually genetic. They go full gene therapy there, full eugenics. You see, they are, throughout their training and pubescent period, they are given extra organs that give them, bigger muscles, a second heart, a special lobe in their brain that allows them to shut one half of their brain off while the other is still active, so they can go days, sometimes even weeks, without having to sleep. Acid spit, the ability to change their skin color, be able to eat anything. Their skin is immune to small arms fire, so even outside of their power armor, which I haven't even gotten to yet, the 308 Full Metal Jacket that the UNSC uses, that even the Spartans use, is still going to have a hard time getting through their skin alone. And of course, the black carapace that allows them to control the power armor even better. There's a few more, but you get the point. I believe there's about 11. I have to double check. And of course, if they're Primaris Space Marines, which are the upgraded version of the Astartes, they have 13 new organs. So you got the regular Astartes, the new Primaris, which are upgraded versions of what I already just said, and then of course their armor itself. The armor isn't made by real material that we have, like the Mjolnir. It's made by something called ceramite, which is a plasteel type of material, but it's so strong that it can withstand laser and plasma fire. A little bit stronger than Spartan armor. I'm sorry for all of the Spartan fans out there. And not only that, the inside of the power armor is also what can be compared to a still suit from Dune. So if you know what I'm talking about there. So they can live in these power armors for days or weeks and not have to worry about anything. Hell, Space Wolves, one of the chapters of Space Marines, they literally live in their power armor when they graduate from their training. So some just live in the damn thing. And then of course you have their main weapon. The main weapon of the Space Marines in 40k, the bolter. Now a bolt shell is massive. It is a 996. So it is 3 times bigger than anything that the UNSC is using in its regular, lineup of weapons, with the exception of the sniper rifle. But even then, the bolt round is still bigger than that. And not only is it bigger, it is armor piercing and rocket propelled explosive. They are firing mini armor piercing rockets. A single bolter round will turn a regular human into a fine pink mist. And that is what the Spartans would be going up against, because let's be real, it will boil down to the Spartans versus the Space Marines, and it's still not going to go well with the Spartans. I know some of you will be like, well, the Spartans have shields. Well, yeah, so do Space Marines. Now, not all of them have shields. Usually the shields are saved for the captains and veterans, but half the time they don't even need them, because the ceramite armor that they are wearing is strong enough to protect them from most fire. some of you may say, well, the Space Marines from 40K are massive, so obviously the Spartans are faster. Again, you are wrong there. It is said that something as big as the Space Marines, because by minimum they are 8 feet, so many of them are much bigger than the Spartans themselves, on top of being able to be faster. It is said that their movements are so fast they look like blurs to the human eye. Think about that. They move so fast for being so big that they look like literal blurs to the human eye. Not only that, they can keep up the speed way longer than a Spartan can, because the process to make a Space Marine turns them from a regular human into basically an almost immortal demigod. And then, of course, you got one of the most important things that comes to this fight that I don't see a lot of people bring up is experience. Spartans, when they are fully done with the program, they have all their upgrades and all that, they can live a few hundred years. Astartes, the Space Marines, can live for thousands. They are near immortal. Now, is it rare for them to live that long? Yes, it is, because again, the Warhammer universe is filled with all sorts of deadly races, like, you know, bugs that eat everything, living robots that are carrying weapons that literally disintegrate you at an atomic level, to literal demons. I am not joking. Literal demons. They can live to be thousands of years old. Actually, some have been around since the Horus Heresy, you know, from 10,000 years ago in their timeline. They are going to have way more experience in combat than the Spartans. Is just experience alone makes them win this fight, on top of their weaponry, because not only do they have, you know, the bolters, the 996 armor piercing rockets, they also have lasers of their own, they have plasma weapons of their own, not to mention they have, you know, swords that create an energy field that basically makes them lightsabers. They have gravity hammers, and my personal favorite, the chain sword, which is exactly what it sounds like, a chainsaw sword with special metal that repairs itself and always stays sharp. So sorry, Spartans. Not to mention there's more of them with way harsher training than anything the Spartans have ever gone through. Like, the Spartan training program might have a high casualty rate. The Astartes training programs, depending on which chapter you go to, is very common for a whole batch of recruits to die. That's how brutal their training is. The Spartans ain't got nothing on these guys. And then, of course, the vehicles themselves that the Astartes use, because they have their own vehicles, because they, again, much bigger than the normal humans. It is ridiculous, because while the Spartans were made obviously very efficient, when you think about it, yeah, we'll make them bigger, but they can still use regular military equipment, which is good and efficient. But with the Astartes having their own special equipment made especially for them, it's not a match. I'm sorry. They will curb stomp the Spartans, even with Master Chief himself in the fight. His luck is going to run out very quickly. He may get lucky and kill 1 or 2 Space Marines, but it's not going to last long. I'm sorry. So in conclusion, the UNSC never stood a chance. I'm sorry, Halo fans. I'm a Halo fan myself. Obviously, I'm excited for Halo Infinite, but it's a wash. The UNSC is powerful in the Halo universe, but compared to the Warhammer universe, they ain't nothing. And to all those that say, well, when they're all humans, wouldn't they just join the Imperium? No. Simple fact that they would be branded heretics and they would be wiped out. Their beliefs are way too off base for the Imperium to allow them to live. So with that being said, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you kind of like this new version of what I'm doing. please subscribe. And of course, if you're drinking along with me, I'm pretty sure I should say, hey, drink responsibly and enjoy.